Hi, I'm Adam Simmons with Project Geospatial and the host of the Geospatial Frontier. I want to welcome everyone to our Small Sat Operators panel. Before we get started, it is my honor to introduce the moderator for this session, Debra Werner. Debra Werner is a correspondent for Space News in Aerospace America based in San Francisco. Debra earned a bachelor's degree in communications from the University of California, Berkeley, and a master's degree in journalism from Northwestern University. She has already moderated one of our panels with Geospatial Frontier Virtual Technology Fair a few weeks ago, and it is our pleasure to have her back to moderate the Small Sat Operators panel, giving us insight to what the new kids on the block are up to. With that, I'm going to pass the baton to her as she introduces our panelists and gets into the discussion. Thanks, Debra.
Thank you, Adam. It's my pleasure to moderate what I hope will be a lively discussion about remote sensing and synthetic aperture radar satellites. First, let's talk about why SAR is important. Unlike electro-optical imagery, which is obscured by dark and clouds, SAR satellites gather imagery day, night, and through clouds. Once a tool used almost exclusively by government agencies, SAR adoption is growing among companies eager to understand activity around the world. We're on the cusp of a SAR revolution. After years of being told small satellites would not offer enough power for SAR, ICEYE proved in 2018 they could. Now, in 2020, additional companies are planning to launch SAR satellites, and it's my pleasure to have leaders of 3 of those companies on this panel, along with Dr. Mark Matossian, CEO of ICEYE US, and someone with decades of satellite constellation experience. Welcome, Gabe Dominocielo, co-founder of Umbra Lab, Payam Banazadeh, Capella Space founder and CEO, and Motoyuki Arai, Synspective founder and CEO. So first, I'd like to ask all of you to tell a little bit about yourselves and about the SAR ventures that you are pursuing. Mark, do you want to start?
Sure. Hi, very pleased to be here, Debra. Thank you. So as Debra said, I'm the CEO of ICEYE US. ICEYE is headquartered in Finland. We've got several satellites in orbit. And ICEYE, I think, led the way in establishing the first successful small satellite SAR operations. It's been a very exciting ride. And we've got several more satellites to be launched this year. And for us, it's all engines are on full.
All right, Gabe, how about you?
So yeah, we're building a synthetic aperture radar satellite. We're launching it later this year. We're based in Santa Barbara, which has a very unique history for synthetic aperture radars, particularly radar. There's a long legacy of aerospace here, which many people do not know. Like Jack and Northrop went to Santa Barbara High, where I went. The Lockheed brothers started their first company in Santa Barbara, like right down the street from our facility. And we have a very unique capability in Santa Barbara for deployable structures and just deployable space systems. We're able to draw from great talent in this area. And Umbra does not do analytics. We're totally focused on partnership with our customers.
Great. Motoyuki.
Yes, thank you for invitation for this exciting session. So I'm very honored to join this panel with challenges. And Synspective, so I established Synspective in Japan. So good morning from Japan again. Anyway, Synspective is doing business both of satellite development and solution development as well. So we provide one-stop shop solution service to commercial user, and we try to extend the market from governmental use to industrial users as well. And the solution development is very important to extend the use case to create the new market. So currently, there are so many industrial users focused on digital transformation, including remote sensing and data science and machine learning. So we utilize SAR data to be, common solution in that emerging market. And then we try to make the world as learning world with data. Data-driven management. So that's Synspective. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you. Payam?
Yeah, do you guys hear me okay now?
Yes.
Great. So I just want to start off by apologizing to the fellow panelists for the bad connection. The internet has been pretty bad today. So yeah, Payam Banazadeh, I'm founder and CEO of Capella Space. The company is a few years old, and we are launching a constellation of SAR satellites. We're based in San Francisco. We've raised quite a bit of capital for venture from Silicon Valley. And we build all the satellites internally at Capella. So we're vertically integrated on the hardware side, but also importantly, we are interested to get into the downstream information services for SAR, which I'm sure we'll get into chatting about that in a bit. So we have some interesting, exciting products on the software and analytics that we're going to be rolling out with launch of our satellites later this year and into next year. I'm excited to be here and talking about SAR. Thank you.
That sounds great. One thing I'm curious about is whether COVID-19 has affected any of your plans, whether it's created problems in terms of supply chain, launch schedules, or investment, or should I say challenges in any of those areas for any of you?
I'll take that, Debra. And the answer for us is not significantly. We had a very smooth transition to having our employees work from home. The people that we were careful to protect are people that are sort of in getting ready for launch campaigns. And our satellite manufacturing continued unabated. We're very careful about social distancing and such in the workplace. And we had very, very few people in the office as a result of that. So for us, it was not an impediment, and I think in some ways, and probably other people will second this, in some ways actually a lot of meetings got eliminated and some people became more productive. But we did have, we see a little bit of launch delays, but nothing that's problematic for us.
Got it. Moto, you've been waiting for a launch for a while.
Yes, but I think currently we have not affected in satellite development and launch, hardware development including. So we try to do the usual operation as same as we can, with minimizing the infection risk. So as Mark mentioned, so we try to new type of working style, I think. Based on remote working, and I think it's a very good chance to build out the new culture in company. So in hardware development, we do like that, and in other viewpoint, actually, the marketing activity, I think positive and negative impact, both of them exist. So so first of all, so negative impact. So it's a little bit become to be tough to conduct POC. It's kind of a prototyping project for solution development. It's a little bit tough because we have to do co-creation with customer in person, hopefully. So it's become a little bit difficult. But we are recently aware that this COVID effect brings some positive impact. As I mentioned, digital transformation, including remote sensing, are interested in, how can I say, so many companies currently, and this, how can I say, difficulty in physical moving or physical meeting promote the needs of the digital transformation more than before. So its actual transformation happens in the many industrial market. So I think it's a positive input. So that's impact.
So you're seeing more demand for geospatial data since people are not traveling?
Is that an open question, Debra?
That is an open question.
Yeah, we saw our demand continue to increase. So since we have satellites in orbit and we're serving customers now, we didn't see that abate at all. Our demand for images and our delivery of images continued to increase. And there were of course some special campaigns that we did to look at COVID effects, for media sources and such. But in general, we saw just our continued natural increase in image deliveries.
Got it. So Gabe, Payam, any thoughts on this?
I can go. So in terms of remote work and that sort of thing, I think that our industry specifically is oriented towards a resilient architecture. So if this facility is compromised, we would still be able to fly the satellite. You can use the internet to fly the satellites. But in terms of because we're building multiple satellites, and we have government contracts, we have to fill them. So our engineers have been working. I've been at home a lot, and our lawyers at home. But the engineering teams here, we follow best practices. The employees eat outside. Santa Barbara's a beautiful place. So.
Yeah, I think certainly there has been impacts. I would say in the short, immediate term impact, we have seen supply chain delays. I expect to continue seeing some of that, and I think launches in general, including Capella's campaign, is going to be delayed to the right, between 3 to 6 months. I think one of the challenges for companies that are backed with venture capital, back in March when this happened, essentially venture money was completely dried up for companies that are still raising capital and they want to continue raising growth capital. And that was the case for a few months. And now that's starting to open up again a little bit, but strategies have changed. And I would say for the rest of the year, it is going to be very, very difficult to raise capital, especially in an industry like this where you do need to raise quite a bit before you get to revenue. And it's going to be incredibly difficult with uncertain markets out there for investors to be making big bets on complex businesses such as aerospace, and even more complex like SAR. So I think that's maybe a midterm, long-term impact that we're going to see, that a lot of the companies who did raise money previously, but are going through the typical aerospace challenge of getting satellites up and getting on rockets, don't get delayed, and getting to revenue. That's sort of valley of death. We will see, I think, more companies than normal, and then typically sort of fall off the cliff there. And I think that's just something we're going to see across the board in aerospace.
Yes. To date, SAR has been a government market. They have been the consumers of SAR. Are those the customers that you're all targeting, or do you also see commercial applications?
We're seeing both. Clearly, the governments are often the most sophisticated users, most sophisticated customers, especially the U.S. government. So that's the largest current market, but we do see a lot of interest in other commercial markets. I think at this point, there's sort of a balance between like investing in the future of the commercial market. That's ultimately going to be, I think, a larger market. But as a startup, you're always balancing what's your current revenue potential and what's your longer range future investment for revenue. So it would be a mistake to only focus on government markets, I think, but absolutely you can't ignore it.
Moto, are you looking at commercial markets as well?
Yes, sure. So for data sales, yes, governmental user and also data analyzer. I think it's an emerging market for data sales. But currently, as I said, Synspective focus on the solution providing to industrial users, and we focusing on especially in infrastructure development, including disaster response and also relevant financial sectors as well. So we try to currently, it's not promised market, so currently we try to extend our service to the emerging market. But basically, there are so many data and so many tools are separated to be used in the infrastructure development market. So we try to provide this kind of the package solution platform, including from planning, construction and operation and maintenance, and also including disaster response. And then we try to provide the solution platform to cover the overall value chain, and then we try to improve the efficiency of infrastructure development operation. So that's our targeting.
To extend Moto's point, there are some instances where an event, data from an event actually serves both government and commercial markets. So, for example, in a disaster, as Moto mentioned, you certainly can have emergency response in the US, FEMA response, flood mapping, that sort of thing. But on the commercial side of that, you could also have insurance. So often these things are actually integrated.
Got it. Gabe, is that one of the markets that you're looking at, or what markets look promising to you?
So obviously, like, we love our government customers. We love working with the government, but from a purely business perspective, we believe it's very valuable to have a perfectly sustainable and profitable business only on your commercial customers. The government should be like the cherry on top of a nice sundae. Like what Mark was saying, they are a large consumer of radar data. Like, we all know this, it is well known. And it's not just the US government, it's every government wants more SAR data. And it's something that we keep on seeing, is that these new sensors will be launched and then all the data is snapped up and commercial customers are like, hey, how about us? And so I think that that's, but we treat foreign government customers like commercial customers. Kind of the only special relationship we have is with the US government. But especially as more sensors are launched and prices come down, we're going to see the commercial market expand.
Yeah.
Anything you wanted to add there? Sorry, Mark. Go on.
That's right. I was just going to say the important thing about bringing in the commercial market and in educating those specific verticals is that what we're really doing is we're expanding the pie. We're expanding the market of potential users. And as the analytics products get developed and it becomes, the customer is not a GIS professional, but it's a spreadsheeter, then you've really expanded the market and you're really supporting smart decision making.
Yeah, that makes me wonder how big a piece education is of this marketing effort.
I see Gabe saying huge.
It's big. It's the stuff you're not really thinking about. If you think of like the machine learning student at Stanford who, if they can buy radar imagery for a couple $1,000 and come up with a neat algorithm and make $1 million, that is a completely unlimited market.
What are they buying that imagery to do?
I mean, if you want to go through SAR applications, there's a million SAR applications that we can do. I was just on the phone with a guy. He's looking at chicken eggs. I'm like, what the hell are you doing with chicken eggs? He's like, well, free-range chicken, they have like chicken wire, these metal fences, and based on the length of the fence, like how far out it goes, I can estimate how many eggs they have. And I'm like, okay, whatever. Jesus. I mean, it's endless.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, this is Payam, if I may jump in. Maybe a Cantorian point of view here, but the commercial market for SAR is very immature. And, if all of us had our satellites up in full constellation and there was no government, US as well as internationally, to pay for the capabilities, you just simply can't really sustain your business with the commercial market that exists today with SAR imagery. And so, although very interesting, certainly a big potential that everyone around the table here is working hard and hoping that it's going to evolve and come out of the immature stage that it is now. But I don't believe it's there, and I don't believe it will be there next year or 2 years from now. I mean, if you just look at optical and the head start that optical has had and where that market is in terms of maturity, and then you add the complexity of SAR, you add the unavailability of data for a very long time. Even today, the Stanford PhD students don't really have access to free open data that's high resolution, so they can actually develop those algorithms and then go test it out. There's a lot of elements that just simply are not there today for that market to start thriving and existing and evolving. And it's going to take quite a while. And I think the challenge is going to be, as you launch satellites and as you start getting deep into business development and sales, you understand that money is going to come from governments, and governments come with very specific requests on how they would want to be ordering and security and reserving and tiers, and you're going to immediately find yourself in a pretty tough situation where maybe the original business plan was to sell things at a certain cost or make it make it available in a certain way, but you're going to have to make a decision of, do you go after short-term revenue, which is going to be government, or are you not going to capture that short-term revenue and hope for a long-term revenue in a market that doesn't exist today? And there are many interesting use cases out there. None have been effectively in a massive scale operationalized, where it's blended in a company's workflow that has thousands of operations across the world. The biggest use case, I would say, for SAR remains to be defense and intelligence.
Did anybody else want to chime in on that?
Certainly the largest current market is defense and intelligence. And I think that's true around the world. But it's also important to invest in the future and develop those products that those commercial verticals are also going to need.
Okay.
I mean, just from my experience, I mean, having a SAR satellite is the license to print money. You look at it, like, think about it. So our hypothesis is, right, if you, in a free market, markets are elastic. If you improve the quality of something, markets tend to expand. If you reduce the cost of something, markets tend to expand. if you do both, markets expand exponentially. The existing radar market, as far as I can tell, there are certain areas of interest, high demand areas, where you cannot get imagery. And those customers, it is going to take a lot to serve them. So I say bring it on. I want as many SAR providers as possible. It's going to push us all on the panel to innovate, and it's just going to be good for the market and good for the country.
I think expansion of capabilities and addition of high resolution, high revisit, all the things that everyone around this table wants to do, and even lowering the cost doesn't necessarily correlate with exponential growth, because the problem is we don't actually fully understand the elasticity of the SAR market. If someone is buying something for $3,000 and you go to them and you offer it for $300, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to continue not only spending the budget that they had, but they're going to spend 10 times more. And so you might have, in that scenario, potentially just dropped your own total accessible market by a tenth. You might have just shrunk it 90%. And so again, a lot of this stuff is very immature, and I think we're all trying to understand how deep it goes and what are the interesting use cases and how we can monetize. But it's not really clear cut from my perspective that if there's going to be 1,000 SAR satellites, there's going to be immediately 1,000x more returns that's going to come out of this market.
Well, I would agree that it's not an infinite market, but as a data point, at ICEYE we have 4 satellite years of flight experience, and we've taken 20,000 images, and we are very, very, very eager to get more satellites up and just increase the throughput in the constellation.
Okay. Does anybody who comments on what they're launching? I believe Umbra Lab does not talk about when you're launching. Is that correct?
No, we don't announce launch dates. We don't like forward-looking statements, really. Okay. So I don't know, maybe we'll announce our launch. I'm pretty sure that our launch providers, I got an email today, is going to announce it. And I'm pretty sure it's leaked on the internet too.
Okay.
Like, I mean, I found out from a Google alert. Like I saw it. I was like, oh God, whatever. But yeah, we're not, because launches are so frequently delayed. I'm like sitting and refreshing the website. Somehow we haven't been delayed, and I'm like, how is this possible? But yeah, no, we don't make forward-looking statements, really.
Moto, when do you plan to launch?
So, as you know, our first demonstration satellite launch is planned in this year. So we are very excited to see that. And also our second demonstration satellite is going to be launched in next year, I think. And then currently we already started to develop the commercial satellite for recurrent, mass production model. So we're going to launch it within, I think 2 or 3 years, I think. So that's our launching plan. And of course, it's maybe affected by COVID or the other instance. So it's just planned, but yeah, that's our launching plan.
Okay. Payam, what are you saying about launches?
Yeah, we have some Rocket Lab launches, we have some SpaceX launches, and we did encounter COVID delays. And in the background, we have been trying to play the aerospace poker game by shuffling payloads around and trying to make some internal bets on which one might go first and which might go next. And along those lines, we at some point decided that we're gonna try to announce launches at the very last minute, because it's a lose-lose situation by announcing things early, knowing that they're gonna get delayed. And our very first satellite in ICEYE was delayed 12 months, and that's no joke. So delays in this industry with launches do happen, and I think one thing I've learned over the last 4 years is if they're going to say it's going to go December, it will most likely go March, if not June. And if you can build your business around that mentality, then you're going to be in a better situation.
Mark, what about ICEYE launches?
We have 4 more coming up this year, so we're eager for it.
Great. Okay.
Yep.
Moto talked about infrastructure as a very promising market. What are the first markets that Umbra and Capella are targeting?
So we're a bent pipe. We're a data provider. So we don't provide a end product. So our key thing is that we partner with people who demand the data, and that can be anyone. As long as they pass the regulatory stuff. So our entire business model is how can we help the geoint grow? How can we help somebody who's trying to determine an answer, get that answer, get it better, get it cheaper? We're very, very focused on building a satellite that allows us to deliver low-cost data. It's high quality, and then we'll let the guys, we'll be like the cable provider, and everyone else can be the TV show. And we'll let them be Seinfeld, and we'll just sit back and be Cox Cable. And
okay.
Yeah. We're focusing on defense and intelligence in the short term. However, we are developing some end solutions, both for defense and intelligence. Turns out that even the more sophisticated users that have been using SAR, they are eager to get away from consuming just data and move into consuming some higher degree products. And so DNI is certainly the first market that we're going after, and the next one on the commercial side is going to be monitoring changes for both infrastructure as well as, again, DNI for some automated systems.
Got it. Gabe, you mentioned regulatory stuff, which made me think of the new US remote sensing rules. Is that having an impact on your business?
Why do you have to give me these annoying questions, Debra?
It's my job.
I will say, so I've been listening to the ACRES meeting. This is my co-founder is heading up this mission with some people that we've hired. But I've been listening to the calls, and Payam's been really kicking ass on them, so I appreciate that from him. I think there's going to be an update to the regulation in 12 days. And I think that hopefully they're going to let us sell our quarter meter stuff. I think that they will. Every signal that they've given us has, and I'll text my boy Wilbur and let him know if there's a problem.
So Payam, what are you saying in those meetings?
I don't know. I think I was just trying to be voice of reason, but I think what NOAA is doing is quite exciting, and it's definitely the first step in the right direction. The challenge I see over the coming months is how that regulatory is going to be implemented, because there's quite a bit of room for interpreting the regulation in a specific way. As an example, for SAR, there's still quite a bit of back and forth on understanding the available capability internationally in order to argue that that capability domestically should not be regulated as a tier 3, which is sort of this new tiers that they've developed. So I think the devils are going to be in details, and although optimistic about working through these issues, I think it's going to take a bit before we get to a solution that's going to sponsor the U.S. industry in a way that it really should. But the NOAA folks have been very receptive feedback, and it's very, very refreshing to be able to have these conversations with them and talk through these problems. But NOAA is one side, working through FCC is also another side. And with radar, bandwidth is quite important. And even if in the absolute base case, NOAA drops the resolution requirements or the threshold in terms of restrictions to 25 centimeter or even better than that, the next challenge that companies like Capella are going to have to figure out is navigating the FCC coordinations and being able to get the right spectrum with the right conditions and going through that coordination. And just as a reminder, in US, we've never actually issued a full license for any of the bandwidth that anyone on this call is discussing. And a lot of that bandwidth is not really up for grabs. It's occupied by US government and other folks. So I think we're going to still have lots of challenges getting through, but we're definitely going in the right direction compared to 10 years ago.
Yeah. And I will add that they're going to, we were told, it was on the phone call, the public phone calls, that they are going to not restrict anyone's licenses from the ones that have been issued. So we're not going to get anything worse than what we already have, which is good.
Yeah. Well, we're regulated by Finland, and so for us, we're serving 25 centimeter resolution imagery now.
All right. We've gotten a lot of questions coming in from the audience. So let me ask, one of the questions was for all of you to please clarify your data sales models.
I'll go first because it's really easy. You go to a website, you click on a map, and you select an area of interest, and then you get a picture. If you need more than that, you upload a shapefile or an Excel form, and then we just give you your data. It is a bent pipe.
We have a customer success team that will manage constellation availability. So you just have to submit your area of interest, and we'll assess opportunities and provide the data. It's as easy as an SFTP download. So the data just shows up in that directory, and you just take the secure download through the cloud anywhere in the world.
Moto, what's your
Debra
approach?
Okay, so I think Synspective has almost same business model on the system, and okay. In addition, I think it's same for all. Subscription contract is best. How can I say? In specific area of interest or the other, how can I say, the package of areas. So So I think we have to discuss about it with customers continuously. Yeah, by customer success team, I think.
Payam, I know you're focused on defense and intelligence. What about your data sales models? Do you have a model for commercial customers?
Yeah, I thought the question was around the business model and less so about delivery. On the delivery side, we have a console that it's like a Google map, and people can order and receive through that. We also have APIs built that allows customers to sort of be able to push requests of tasking through their own platform, whatever that might be, and this is quite useful for the defense and intel folks where they've already have systems in place and they really don't want to have their guys either email someone externally or get on a website that's outside of their network, and so they can just go through the API. So the delivery or request is through either API or the Capella console. But in terms of the business model itself, we sell the imagery, and it's a per image price, and there are different tiers in terms of the service levels, and there are different modes in terms of resolution, and there are also different delivery tiers that, how fast someone would like to get it delivered. And then there are variations of that in terms of, if you want to look at a place for, repeated, at a frequent, at a certain frequency over a certain period, then, you could set those type of things, and that's the data cells. And then what we're going to be rolling out later is going to be the sort of analytics that I touched on briefly earlier.
Got it. Got it.
I should point out, Debra, that getting that whole engine tuned, all those processes for order taking and prioritization and image collection, processing, and delivery. That's one of those things that sound good in theory, but in application, it takes a long time to sort that out and actually make that a very smooth running operation. So getting the first satellite up is a huge challenge, but actually building a business around it and all the back office systems, revenue collection, everything else, that takes time and effort. So once you get the first satellite up, you're really at the first rung of yet another even taller ladder of how do you build the business.
How important?
I can't agree more.
Oh, sorry,
I can't agree more with Mark. Sorry, Debra. This is a point that gets missed all the time, which is building and launching a satellite is step one, and then building a business and all the infrastructure on the ground to deliver products at a very reliable, with reliable service levels to customers that they're willing to pay is just another thing. And over the last 18 months, the team that's doing that is bigger than the team that's doing satellites. And we've gone through this pain and really realized how difficult it is to do it personally over the last year. So I just couldn't agree more with Mark on this.
Yeah. These companies get started typically by engineers and technologists, but there's a whole world of just startup operations and business building, so it can never be neglected.
So, yeah, of course, if you're taking data and delivering it to the cloud and processing the imagery in the cloud, it's a pretty seamless process. I mean, the whole idea is that we need to, if bombs start flying, we've got to be able to deliver stuff to our customers if we can't go into the office. We're seeing this with COVID. So it has been very seamless for us to program, and we've done tests where an image comes down, it goes to the cloud, it gets processed in the cloud, and it's delivered to the customer in the cloud. Our tasking platform's in the cloud. Our scheduling is in the cloud. And those hooks, those API hooks are simple. It's like if we want to onboard or integrate into a customer's API, it's a 1 hour, 2 hour process. But I mean, I guess we'll find out.
How important is it to have speedy delivery of the data to customers? And if that's important, what are you doing to deliver it?
Depends on the customer, is the first answer. But speedy delivery, certainly in the defense and intelligence side, can be absolutely critical. So if it's more of a long-term monitoring and change detection, then that's one thing. If it's a tactical issue, then that's another thing. We have circumstances where we have finely tuned that downlink to delivery in under 5 minutes, and it takes effort to get there. And for some customers, that's super important. And I think for companies like everyone on this panel, there's really there's sort of a goal out there is we want to be able to match or really exceed national technical means and just demonstrate our agility.
Yeah. So as Mark mentioned, it depends on the customer use. So let's say focusing on infrastructure development. In planning phase, they don't need very high frequency and very high delivery speed because they have enough time to make plan for infrastructure. But in downstream, for example, operation and maintenance, and including disaster response, needs very high frequency and delivery speed. And in that case, the data provision is not enough. So the analytics, the information after analyzing is very important to, let the local government or the other military use to rescue for rescue activity. So so that's why we have to develop the constellation and the very rapid pipeline to analyze and store and analyzing the data for our customers.
Yeah, actually, even on the disaster response, you see the timing in both ways. For Hurricane Dorian, when it struck the Bahamas, it was expected that it would hit. You could see the hurricane coming in to some degree. So there are two aspects here. There's sort of response time to for targeting and programming the satellite. There's response time for downlink to delivery. And what we found curiously is we were able to get the first flood maps out of the Bahamas when Dorian hit. While it was actually still over the island, we could image through the clouds. And that was a very powerful thing, but also importantly, because we controlled the full stack, when the hurricane shifted late in the game, and instead of hitting Abaco Island, went to a different island, we were able to shift quickly and have that responsiveness from a planning point of view and get the right image at the right time in the right location. On the delivery side, I think maybe another good example is we had, I think, some of the earliest, if not the first images of Midland, Michigan for the Michigan dam breaks and the floods that resulted in Midland. In that case, we're able to deliver those images to the right agency in minutes.
Yeah, I would say majority of the DNI customers, which also happen to be majority of SAR users at the moment, they're very much so used to the traditional way of acquiring data from providers, which is they get access to the satellite over their area of interest where they have a ground station. They can task the satellite, and they can also get that imagery back to that ground station within the same path, process it locally, and put that in use. And they pay significant amount of dollars to get that capability built up. And that sort of shows how important it is for them, both in terms of security as well as timeliness, to have access to very quick tasking and then very quick delivery within the same path. That works fine if you have one satellite, but the moment you start multiplying that and having a constellation, it's really not the most optimized way of tasking the right satellite for collection over an area of interest. And so what we have done is we've added a Inmarsat communication link to every satellite that we're going to be launching this year and next year. And so we can do real-time tasking of the satellite from really anywhere in the world at any time, which actually makes our entire constellation sort of like a network of satellites that can in real time reschedule all of the tasks that have been uploaded in order to continuously optimize for the best collection planning. And then on delivery, we can download to either downlink to the customer's ground station, or or to our own ground stations, which we've partnered with AWS and ASAT. Those are well known and be able to process it in the cloud. But every single customer, at least on the D&I side, wants things faster and quicker. On commercial, again, as Mark said, really depends on the use case and the end customer.
Great. Payam, while I have you, there's a question from the audience for you. It says, at present, Capella is focused primarily on high-resolution, narrow swath data, catering primarily to the U.S. government. In the future, is Capella also considering lower resolution, wide swath SAR image acquisition for the commercial sector?
Sorry, Debra, I lost you there for a few seconds. Did I hear that the question was, would we switch our focus at some point down the road and do low res, wide swath?
Yeah, or at least add that.
Yeah. This is really more question around what the market demands and where the customers are and what is the capability that the end customers really want. And although I am an aerospace engineer by
Oops. Looks like we lost him.
Lost him, maybe.
Oh, well.
Okay, so Mark, I have a question for you.
Yeah, actually, I could. I wouldn't mind saying something about that
Okay.
last question though. It's not always about resolution. It really depends on the application. And if you're trying to address, for example, maritime domain awareness, having a little spotlight image is not necessarily the right thing, because you're not going to be your field of interest is not that large, and you may miss the target in your in where you want to take an image. So in that case, if you're for maritime, you have a boat on the water. It's like a big corner cube. It's going to reflect, and so you kind of want a larger area. So for us, we have various resolutions in Spotlight down to 25 centimeter, but also lower resolution. In Spotlight, we have strip map modes in various resolution. That's a larger footprint. There's our video that's coming out the third quarter, interferometry, and additional modes that are even bigger. So we see that there's definitely demand for a menu of different modes, and having all those modes available for those different market applications is actually a significant investment, but really important. And we've rolled out at least, half a dozen new modes coming this year at least.
Yes. So Mark, I have another question for you. ESA's EarthNet third-party mission. I understand ICEYE is now included in that. What does that mean?
That's a way for people that have access to that program to have access to ICEYE data through it. So we're very, very pleased to be included in that third-party mission program for ESA. So
is that like ESA researchers?
Yeah, that, and I think more other applications. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. We only have.
I'm sorry, I dropped off.
Sorry, Payam. You're back.
Yeah. Right. Probably. Let me know if you want to say it again, or you can move on.
It's a little hard to hear you now.
Do you hear me okay now?
Yes, that's better. I'm not sure exactly where we dropped you. You were talking about, you mentioned your Inmarsat links, you mentioned your partnership with KSAT on the ground, and all of your efforts to quickly get the data delivered to customers.
Right, and I think you asked a question from the audience around low resolution SWOT.
Right, that's right.
Right. So yeah, I usually only build things that the market has the capability to buy, and we see a significant return on investment. And initially, we focused on resolution of small area and point targets. Again, we're going after DNI, and we realized a lot of the high-end algorithms for classification of objects, which is going to be required for a lot of the commercial use cases as well, do really focus on that resolution. But as we're digging deeper, there might be opportunities in maritime, specifically in agriculture. But again, you can't really build a system that can do all. And so you're mostly optimizing for, one or two capabilities. And so I guess the short answer is yes. The long answer is we're very focused on what we're doing today.
Got it. Since we only have 5 minutes left, is there anything that any of you want to say about your business or your plans that you haven't had a chance to discuss?
We're really focused on generating, creating value for our customers. And I think the best way for any of us to do that is to continue to improve our sensors and make sure the data is low cost and high quality, so that our customers can derive the best answers from it. And if you guys are selling answers, which you are, that's great. And I really am enjoying seeing the SAR market expand the way that it is. And I think Mark spoke to the demand that they have on the ICEYE satellites, which is something we keep on hearing about. I mean, it's really exciting. I mean, ICEYE really enabled this. Like all the conversations that we ever had, it's like, oh, you can't do it from a small sat platform. Moment ICEYE did it, it's like that conversation's over. And so it's just been a really, really exciting industry, and there never has been a better time for radar. And I think we're finally coalescing with the new SpaceX launch cost dropping by over 50%, and new capabilities coming out from all the way down to your tiniest microchip to, great component sets from large vendors.
Yeah, thanks, Gabe. I would say that, I think we're frankly entering a small renaissance in SAR. I think we're getting X1, our first satellite up, and then following that with additional satellites. And yeah, we've imaged over 52 million square kilometers now. I mean, it's a stunning thing. And so now it's blossoming, and there are, what Gabe and Moto and Payam and are doing here is super exciting. And actually, I personally feel like competition is good. Like, it drives us all to better performance, and the market and the consumer, the customers will benefit from it. So it's an exciting time. We're heading into a SAR renaissance. I really do feel that, and frankly, that's why I joined ICEYE. I guess the last thing I would add is, for us, we've found significant traction in the U.S. and overseas, but our primary focus right now is the U.S. market, and we are investing in it, and we're ready to grow.
So I totally agree with it. So we means all of our customer and the Synspective as well need the very cheap and very high quality data to provide a solution. So it's not only for data analyzer, but also the new emerging market needs the big amount of SAR data. So I think we have to do that continuously. So all of the companies celebrate.
Payam, is there anything else you wanted to say?
Yeah, no, I just want to thank you and thank the panelists. It's exciting to have other people, taking different parts of the market and doing what they're good at. And I'm excited that there are other companies outside of even these panelists who are focused on building products and analytics on SAR, optical, RF, and in a way everyone is doing everyone's sort of business development job and on their own dime, which is really good. And I would say there's no competition until we've found the right market, and then we can divide and conquer. But right now, it's all about competition.
Well, thank you very much for joining me.
Thanks, Debra.
Yeah, thank you, Debra. This has really been great, and it's nice to see everyone together here. Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.